Eleanor Ellie Carmichael drifted her personal shuttle alongside the enormous derelict, its hull pitted and scarred from decades of asteroid impacts. The Calraxian cruiser, Dawn Reclamation, floated silently in the orbital salvage yard above asteroid K7119, a forgotten monument to an alien civilization that had mysteriously withdrawn from this sector nearly 30 years ago. "This is it," she whispered to herself, checking her atmospheric suit seals one final time. The big score or the final bankruptcy? At 34, Ellie had spent half her life as an independent salvage mechanic, scraping by on minor repairs and parts recovery. Her reputation for innovative fixes had earned her respect among the salvage community, but never the financial stability she craved. The exclusive rights to inspect this derelict had cost her nearly everything. If the Calraxian technology was salvageable, she'd be set for life. If not, she pushed the thought away as she maneuvered toward the airlock. The ship's exterior was an elegant blend of function and alien aesthetics, sweeping curves of carbon-reinforced alloy alongside angular geometrical patterns that seemed to serve no obvious purpose. Ellie had studied what little humans knew of Calraxian design philosophy, but their technology remained largely inscrutable. The airlock's exterior panel responded to her universal override code, a small victory that sent a surge of excitement through her veins. As the outer door slid open with a hiss of equalizing pressure, she detached her tether and pushed herself inside. The airlock chamber was surprisingly intact, no obvious damage, though a fine layer of metallic dust coated every surface. Status indicators still glowed faintly along the walls, suggesting at least minimal power reserves remained. Ellie activated her helmet lights for a better look. "Not half bad for something supposedly abandoned," she muttered, studying the etched patterns that covered the inner door. They seemed to be more than decorative, almost like circuit pathways, but unlike any technology she recognized. As she reached for her diagnostic scanner, the outer door suddenly slammed shut behind her with a resounding clang that reverberated through her suit. Ellie spun around, heart racing. "No! No! No!" She lunged for the control panel, but the display had changed. Where simple status indicators had been moments before, now pulsing red symbols flashed in an unmistakable countdown pattern. The inner door remained sealed. She was trapped. Ellie forced herself to breathe slowly, fighting down panic. "Okay, think. Emergency protocols." She tried the standard emergency override codes, fingers dancing across the alien interface. Nothing. She pried open the manual release panel, only to find the mechanism had been deliberately disabled. Circuits rerouted in a way that suggested intentional sabotage. The countdown continued, symbols shifting every few seconds. Without understanding the Calraxian numeric system, she couldn't be certain how much time remained, but the increasing pulse rate suggested urgency. This wasn't an abandonment, she realized. It's a trap. A crackling sound filled the airlock, followed by a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. "Integrity test initiated," announced the voice in heavily accented standard. "Atmospheric depletion sequence active." Ellie felt the subtle change in pressure as air began to evacuate from the chamber. Her suit would provide oxygen for 3 hours under normal conditions, but if the airlock was actively drawing atmosphere— "Who's there?" she demanded. "This vessel was registered as abandoned in the salvage registry." "Registered falsely," replied the voice, its cadence oddly rhythmic. "Evaluating human response to crisis scenario." "Evaluating? I'm not a lab rat." Ellie's anger momentarily overwhelmed her fear. "I paid for salvage rights." "Payment acknowledged," the voice continued, unmoved. "Test parameters unaffected. Estimated breathable atmosphere. 17 minutes. 17 minutes. Ellie forced herself to focus. This wasn't just about escaping anymore. Someone or something was testing her. The patterns on the walls suddenly seemed less decorative and more deliberate. She traced one particular sequence that repeated across the chamber, a hexagonal shape with internal divisions that reminded her of something. Her eyes widened as she recognized the pattern from her own torn jumpsuit patch, the one she'd repaired after her last salvage job. "The pattern," she whispered. "It's a key." With renewed determination, Ellie examined the wall panels more carefully. One section had a slightly different texture. She pressed her gloved hand against it and felt a slight give, applying pressure in a hexagonal pattern matching the etching. She was rewarded with a soft click as a hidden compartment slid open. Inside lay two objects, a crystalline data storage device and what appeared to be an ancient mechanical key made of an unfamiliar blue-tinted metal. "Integrity test proceeding," announced the voice. 15 minutes to complete atmosphere evacuation." Ellie turned the key over in her hand, noting how its shape corresponded to the patterns etched on the walls. Following an intuition, she held it up against the viewport, allowing the distant light of the system's star to shine through it. The key cast a pattern of shadows that aligned perfectly with a section of the opposite wall. "It's a projection template," she realized. Hurrying to the indicated panel, she found a nearly invisible seam outlining what might be a data port. Using her multi-tool, she carefully pried it open to reveal a socket that perfectly matched the crystal's dimensions. 12 minutes remaining, the voice updated coldly. With steady hands, Ellie inserted the data crystal into the port. Nothing happened. "Come on," she muttered, her breath fogging her helmet as her suit compensated for the thinning air. She noticed the key had additional grooves that aligned with markings around the data port. Following the pattern, she inserted the key beside the crystal and turned it clockwise. The countdown symbols froze mid-pulse. "Initial verification successful," the voice announced. "Secondary verification required." A previously invisible panel on the ceiling illuminated, projecting a holographic interface that hovered in the center of the airlock. The alien symbols were unintelligible to Ellie, but the geometric shapes were similar to the patterns on the walls. "Recalibration necessary," the voice continued. "Align photosensitive panel with orbital shadow patterns." Ellie looked out the viewport. The asteroid K719 cast a slowly moving shadow across the salvage yard as it rotated. The shadow's edge would pass across the ship in the next few minutes. "You want me to align something with that shadow? How?" she demanded. The voice didn't respond, but the holographic display shifted to show a schematic of the airlock. One panel was highlighted, but it was on the exterior of the hull, unreachable from inside. 9 minutes to atmospheric depletion. Ellie's mind raced. The panel needed calibration based on the asteroid's shadow, but she couldn't reach it directly. She scanned the airlock again, noticing a small maintenance hatch near the floor that might provide access to the ship's external sensor array. Using her plasma torch, she carefully cut around the sealed hatch, revealing a tangle of fiber optic cables and crystalline nodes. One crystal in particular seemed to be linked to external sensors, its facets glowing faintly as the shadow's edge approached. "I need to redirect the sensor input," she muttered, examining the control board beside the data port where she'd inserted the crystal key. Working quickly, she disconnected several cables from the maintenance panel and spliced them into her own diagnostic scanner. Using the scanner's interface, she was able to identify which crystals connected to the external photosensitive panel. 6 minutes remaining. With delicate precision, Ellie modified her scanner to project a pattern matching the approaching shadow's edge. She then aimed this pattern at the sensor crystal, effectively spoofing the calibration signal. The holographic display flickered, then stabilized. New symbols appeared, scrolling rapidly. "Shadow pattern accepted," the voice acknowledged. "System calibration in progress." The airlock hummed with renewed energy. Lights flickered on throughout the chamber, and the inner door's control panel illuminated with steady blue indicators rather than pulsing red. "Partial systems activation achieved," the voice announced. "Final verification required. Intent declaration. Intent declaration? Ellie repeated, confused. Why seek to restore rather than scavenge? The voice asked, its tone suddenly more curious than mechanical. 3 minutes to decision point. Ellie felt her heart pounding. This wasn't just a mechanical test. It was an evaluation of her purpose, her character. The truth was, she had come to scavenge, to profit from the abandoned technology. But during those frantic moments of problem-solving, something had changed. I came for salvage, she admitted, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. But what I found was something worth preserving. This ship wasn't just abandoned. It was waiting. The systems are intact. The design is... She gestured at the elegant integration of form and function around her. It's beautiful. Tearing it apart would be like shredding a masterpiece for its canvas. Sentiment detected, the voice noted, neither approving nor dismissing. Final proof required. 1 minute remaining. The holographic display shifted again, showing what appeared to be a command sequence. Ellie recognized enough of the pattern language now to understand this was an activation code, but with one segment missing. Complete the sequence, instructed the voice. Ellie studied the pattern, recognizing elements from the key, the wall etchings, and the shadow calibration. The missing segment wasn't about technical knowledge. It was about understanding the underlying philosophy of the design. With 30 seconds remaining, she used her plasma torch to carefully etch the missing pattern onto her scanner's surface. Then, held it up to complete the holographic sequence, a perfect integration of human and Calraxian technology. Intent verified, the voice declared as the countdown stopped. Atmosphere restoration initiated. Air hissed back into the chamber. The inner airlock door slid open, revealing a fully illuminated bridge beyond. Standing there, 4 arms crossed in what might have been an expression of satisfaction, was a Calraxian. Congratulations, Eleanor Carmichael, the alien said, its voice matching the one that had guided and challenged her through the airlock ordeal. I am Zikatal, technical advisor to the Dawn Reclamation. Ellie stepped through the doorway, removing her helmet as breathable atmosphere filled the bridge. The ship's systems hummed with power all around her, displays illuminating with data streams and navigational charts. This ship wasn't abandoned, she said, trying to process what had just happened. Not abandoned, Zikatal confirmed. Camouflaged, waiting for the right candidate to claim command. Command? Ellie's voice caught in her throat. You're offering me command of a Calraxian cruiser? You have demonstrated resourcefulness, respect for our technology, and alignment with our values, Zikatal explained, moving to a central console. The Dawn Reclamation has been without a captain for 27 standard cycles. Our previous commander fell in the hegemony conflicts. But why choose a human? Why this elaborate test? The Calraxian fleet was scattered after our defeat. Many ships were truly lost. Others, like the Dawn Reclamation, went into hibernation, programmed to await worthy successors of any species. Zikatal manipulated controls with 2 of his 4 arms, while the others remained ceremonially positioned. You are not the first to attempt claim. You are the first to succeed. The main view screen activated, showing 3 distant points of light against the backdrop of stars. Sister ships, Zikatal continued, also in hibernation, also waiting for restoration and command. Ellie's mind raced with the implications. Not just one ship, but potentially a fleet. Not just salvage, but legitimate command. What's the catch? She asked, years of salvage yard negotiations making her cautious. What does the Dawn Reclamation expect from its new captain? Recovery of the sister ships. Zikatal replied simply. Restoration of Calraxian legacy in this sector. Protection against the return of the hegemony forces. And my terms? Ellie countered, surprised by her own boldness. Zikatal's upper arms shifted in what might have been the Calraxian equivalent of raised eyebrows. You negotiate terms? No more hidden tests, Ellie stated firmly. Full disclosure of the mission parameters and ship capabilities, and recognition of my salvage rights, modified to command rights, with appropriate compensation. A sound emerged from Zikatal that Ellie eventually recognized as laughter. Acceptable terms. Captain Carmichael. The ship's AI will transfer command interfaces to human compatibility. As if on cue, the console before her reconfigured itself. Human-readable text appeared alongside the alien symbols, translation protocols activating throughout the bridge. Dawn Reclamation recognizes Eleanor Carmichael as commanding officer, announced a new voice, the ship's AI, its tone more melodic than Zikatal's. Awaiting navigation coordinates. Ellie stepped forward, placing her hands on the smooth surface of the command console. From desperate salvager to starship captain in less than an hour. The enormity of it threatened to overwhelm her. But the quiet confidence that had carried her through the airlock test reasserted itself. Plot course to the nearest sister ship, she ordered, her voice steady. Maximum sustainable speed. The ship responded immediately. Through the view screen, Ellie watched as the stars began to shift. The Dawn Reclamation accelerating away from the salvage yard with a power and grace she could never have imagined when she first approached its seemingly derelict hull. From scrap to legend, she whispered to herself, a smile spreading across her face as the ship carried her toward a future suddenly filled with possibility. Little did she know that this was just the beginning of a much greater adventure. The Dawn Reclamation cut through space with an elegance that belied its size. As they accelerated away from the salvage yard, Ellie marveled at the silent efficiency of the ship's systems. There was none of the rattling, groaning protest she was accustomed to from human vessels cobbled together from spare parts. This ship, despite its dormant years, moved like a living thing, responsive and fluid. The inertial dampeners are unlike anything I've ever seen, she commented, running her hands over the command console. I can barely feel our acceleration. Calraxian gravitic technology operates on principles still unknown to human science. Zikatal explained, manipulating controls with his lower set of arms while gesturing explanatorily with the upper pair. What your people call inertial dampening, we consider basic harmonic resonance with spacetime. Ellie raised an eyebrow. Is that supposed to clarify things? The alien's face shifted in what might have been a smile. Perhaps not. But you will learn, Captain. The ship itself will teach you. As if responding to Zikatal's words, a holographic display materialized before Ellie, showing a detailed schematic of the ship's propulsion system. Labels appeared in both Calraxian script and translated standard. The AI is adapting to your thought patterns, Zikatal observed. It senses your curiosity about the ship's mechanics. Ellie walked around the floating diagram, studying the intricate systems with professional appreciation. This design, it's beautiful. The integration of the power distribution network with the structural supports, it's not just efficient, it's elegant. The Calraxian philosophy of shipbuilding does not separate function from form. Zikatal said, beauty emerges from perfect utility, and perfect utility requires beauty of design. Before Ellie could respond, a soft chime sounded from the command console. Proximity alert, the ship's AI announced. Unidentified vessel approaching on intercept trajectory. The holographic schematic vanished, replaced by a tactical display showing a small craft rapidly closing distance with the Dawn Reclamation. Salvage Authority Patrol, Ellie muttered, recognizing the ship's profile. They must have noticed us leaving the restricted zone. Incoming communication, the AI reported. On screen, Ellie ordered, straightening her posture and trying to project an authority she didn't entirely feel. The view screen flickered, revealing the stern face of a gray-haired man in the formal uniform of the Interstellar Salvage Registry. Unidentified vessel, he began, then stopped short, his eyes widening as he took in the bridge of the Dawn Reclamation and its new captain. Carmichael? Eleanor Carmichael? What in blazes are you doing aboard that derelict? Hello, Administrator Phelps, Ellie replied, striving for a casual tone. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. The Dawn Reclamation isn't a derelict after all. It's a fully functional Calraxian cruiser under new command. New command, Phelps spluttered. Your salvage permit gives you inspection rights only, not... The situation has evolved, Ellie interrupted, gesturing toward Zikatal. This is Technical Advisor Zikatal of the Calraxian fleet. He has formally transferred command of this vessel to me under the Interstellar Reclamation Statutes. Section 42B. Ellie silently thanked her years of navigating salvage bureaucracy, which had required memorizing every possible regulation that might give her an edge in claiming disputed wrecks. Phelps's face reddened. Section 42B applies to vessels of cultural significance being returned to their original makers. Not precisely, Administrator, Zikatal interjected smoothly. The statute states that vessels of unique technological or cultural importance may be reclaimed and recommissioned by either their original makers or by designated successors when the original makers are unable to reclaim directly. The administrator fell silent, clearly unprepared to argue interstellar law with a four-armed alien. We will, of course, file all the proper documentation, Ellie added. But given the sensitive nature of the Dawn Reclamation's mission, we request expedited processing and discretionary classification. Mission, Phelps repeated, his bureaucratic instincts clearly warring with his curiosity. What mission could possibly justify this irregularity? Ellie exchanged a glance with Zikatal, who gave her a subtle gesture that she interpreted as permission to proceed. Recovery of additional Calraxian vessels, she explained, keeping her explanation deliberately vague, and investigation of potential hegemony incursions in the outer systems. The mention of the hegemony, the mysterious force that had driven the Calraxians into retreat decades ago, had the desired effect. Phelps's expression shifted from skepticism to concern. I see, he said, his tone suddenly formal. That would indeed fall under priority protocols. I'll need a formal brief within 48 hours. Captain Carmichael, but you may proceed for now. Thank you, Administrator, Ellie replied, trying not to show her relief. We'll send the brief as soon as possible. The communication ended, and Ellie let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Well navigated, Captain, Zikatal observed. You manipulate bureaucratic obstacles with skill. Years of practice, Ellie replied with a wry smile. When you live on the margins of salvage law, you learn every loophole. She turned back to the command console, still marveling at how quickly her circumstances had changed. Yesterday, she'd been a struggling salvager on the verge of bankruptcy. Today, she was captaining an advanced alien warship on a mission to recover a scattered fleet. Zikatal, she said, a thought occurring to her. You mentioned the ship's AI is adapting to my thought patterns. How much access does it have to my mind? The connection is superficial, the alien assured her. The AI detects general focus and basic emotional states to anticipate needs, not specific thoughts. It is a symbiotic relationship, not an invasion. That's somewhat reassuring, Ellie muttered. Speaking of the AI, does it have a name? Calling it the AI seems a bit impersonal if we're going to be working together. Its designation translates roughly to Dawn consciousness, Zikatal replied. But many Calraxian captains simply used Dawn. Dawn it is, then, Ellie decided. Dawn. How long until we reach the nearest sister ship? At current velocity, we will reach the Twilight Vindication in 17 hours, 22 minutes, the AI responded, its voice melodic yet precise. Twilight Vindication, Ellie repeated. What can you tell me about it? The view screen shifted to display a sleek vessel, similar to the Dawn Reclamation, but with subtle differences in its hull configuration. Twilight Vindication, stealth reconnaissance cruiser, specialized in long-range surveillance and data acquisition, Dawn explained. Last commanded by Navigator Sarakath. Status unknown. Current condition, hibernation mode, similar to Dawn Reclamation's previous state. So we should expect another test? Ellie asked, glancing at Zikatal. Each ship has its own verification protocols, the alien confirmed. The Twilight Vindication will likely challenge you differently than the Dawn Reclamation did. Ellie rubbed her temples, feeling the first pangs of a headache forming. Wonderful. More life-or-death puzzles. Perhaps not death, Zikatal offered, but certainly challenge. The Twilight Vindication was known for its creative security measures. Great, Ellie sighed. In the meantime, I should probably learn more about this ship's systems. If I'm going to be captain, I need to understand what I'm working with. A wise approach, Zikatal agreed. Shall we begin with propulsion, weapons, or communication systems? Let's start with the basics, life support and power distribution, Ellie decided. I want to understand the heart of the ship before I worry about its teeth. For the next several hours, Ellie immersed herself in learning the Dawn Reclamation systems. Zikatal proved to be a patient teacher, explaining Calraxian technology in terms she could understand, while the ship's AI provided interactive demonstrations and simulations. What amazed Ellie most was how integrated everything was. On human ships, systems were modular, designed to be easily replaced when they inevitably failed. But the Dawn Reclamation was built more like a living organism, with systems flowing into one another in ways that made conventional repair philosophy useless. It's not about replacing parts, she realized aloud as she studied a power distribution node. It's about healing the system. An apt observation, Zikatal said. All four hands paused in their demonstration. Calraxian technology is designed to be restored, not replaced. It is why we waited for someone who understood this distinction. As the hours passed, Ellie felt increasingly at home on the alien bridge. The controls responded to her touch with an intuitive ease that surprised her, and the ship's AI anticipated her questions almost before she asked them. Dawn, she said, during a brief break in their studies, show me our current position relative to the nearest populated systems. A three-dimensional star map materialized in the center of the bridge, showing their position as a blue point of light, traveling along a projected course. Red indicators marked several nearby star systems. We're skirting the edge of the Promethean Collective, Ellie noted with concern. Their defense forces are notoriously trigger-happy with unidentified vessels. The Dawn Reclamation stealth systems are currently active, the AI assured her. Promethean sensors will detect only background radiation and minor gravitational anomalies, insufficient to trigger automated defense responses. Still, better safe than sorry, Ellie decided. Plot a course adjustment. Let's give them a wider berth. Course adjustment calculated, Dawn confirmed. Implementing now. The star map shifted slightly as their projected path curved away from the red indicators. Your caution is prudent, Zikatal observed. The Twilight Vindication will require a delicate approach. Better to avoid complications beforehand. Ellie nodded, then stretched, feeling the fatigue of the day's events catching up with her. Is there somewhere I can rest for a few hours? As fascinating as all this is, I need some sleep if I'm going to be at my best when we reach the Twilight Vindication. The captain's quarters were prepared when you passed the initial verification, Zikatal informed her. Dawn can guide you there. A subtle illumination appeared along the floor, creating a pathway leading from the bridge. Follow the light, Captain, Dawn instructed. Your quarters await. Ellie followed the illuminated path through corridors that seemed to shift and adjust as she walked, the ship reconfiguring itself to accommodate human proportions and aesthetics. The thought of the entire vessel adapting to her presence was both awe-inspiring and slightly unnerving. The captain's quarters turned out to be a spacious chamber, with views of the stars through a transparent section of hull. The furnishings were clearly modified from Calraxian designs, adjusted to human proportions, but retaining alien elegance. "This is not what I expected," Ellie admitted, running her hand along what appeared to be a desk made of the same blue-tinted metal as the key she'd found in the airlock. "The ship has reconstructed this space based on your physiological needs and psychological profile," Dawn explained, its voice emanating from subtle speakers throughout the room. "Is it satisfactory?" "It's amazing," Ellie said truthfully. "Thank you." "Rest well, Captain," the AI responded. "I will alert you 1 hour before arrival at the Twilight Vindication." As the lights dimmed to a comfortable level, Ellie removed her salvage suit, now marked with scorch marks and tears from her ordeal in the airlock. Underneath, her simple jumpsuit was equally worse for wear. She made a mental note to see if the ship could fabricate new clothing better suited to her new role. Lying down on the bed, which adjusted to perfectly support her body, Ellie stared up at the stars streaking past. Just 24 hours ago, she'd been sleeping in her cramped shuttle, worrying about whether she could afford fuel for the return journey if the salvage operation failed. Now she was captain of a Calraxian cruiser, embarked on a mission to recover an alien fleet. "From scrap to legend," she whispered again, the phrase becoming something of a personal mantra. As sleep claimed her, Ellie couldn't help but wonder what new challenges awaited at the Twilight Vindication and beyond. Ellie awoke to the soft chime of the ship's alert system. "Captain," Dawn's melodic voice announced, "we are approaching the Twilight Vindication. Estimated arrival in 54 minutes. Sitting up, Ellie was momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings before the events of the previous day came rushing back. She was no longer in her salvage shuttle. She was aboard the Dawn Reclamation, a Calraxian cruiser under her command. "Thank you, Dawn," she replied, swinging her legs over the edge of the bed. "Is there somewhere I can clean up and change? This jumpsuit has seen better days." "Hygiene facilities are accessible through the adjacent chamber," the AI informed her. "Appropriate attire has been fabricated based on your measurements and anticipated needs." Ellie found the bathroom, or whatever the Calraxian equivalent was called, to be a marvel of alien ergonomics modified for human use. The shower used some form of sonic cleaning technology, combined with a fine mist that left her feeling more thoroughly refreshed than any water shower she'd ever experienced. The promised clothing turned out to be a fitted jumpsuit, made of a material that seemed to adjust to her body temperature, with reinforced panels at joints and stress points. It bore subtle markings that she recognized as Calraxian rank insignia, modified to follow human military traditions. There was even a jacket with captain's bars on the collar. "Not bad," she murmured, examining herself in a reflective panel that adjusted to provide optimal viewing angles. Definitely an upgrade from salvage chic. Dressed and refreshed, Ellie made her way back to the bridge, following the illuminated path that appeared as she walked. She found Zikatal already there, engaged in what appeared to be a diagnostic routine. "Good morning, Captain," the alien greeted her, all four arms momentarily pausing in their work. "I trust you rested well?" "Better than I have in years," Ellie admitted. "I'm ready for whatever the Twilight Vindication has in store for us. Speaking of which, what can we expect? You mentioned creative security measures?" Zikatal's upper arms made a gesture that Ellie was beginning to recognize as their equivalent of a shrug. Each ship developed its own verification protocols based on its specific function. The Twilight Vindication specialized in stealth reconnaissance, so its tests will likely focus on perception and pattern recognition, Ellie concluded. Less about mechanical aptitude and more about observation. "A reasonable hypothesis," Zikatal agreed. The Twilight was known for its subtlety. "Dawn," Ellie called, turning to the main view screen. "Show me our target." The screen illuminated, but instead of the expected image of a ship, it displayed only empty space against a backdrop of distant stars and a faint nebula. "Dawn, there's nothing there," Ellie frowned. Are you sure these are the correct coordinates? Coordinates confirmed, the AI responded. The Twilight Vindication is present at the displayed location. Ellie squinted at the screen. Then understanding dawned. It's still in stealth mode, isn't it? Even after all these years. A logical conclusion, Zikatal confirmed. The Twilight's stealth systems were the most advanced in the fleet. They could remain operational for decades with minimal power consumption. So how do we find something we can't see? Ellie mused, studying the apparently empty section of space. Perhaps, Zikatal suggested, we should consider what the Twilight Vindication would be watching for. Ellie snapped her fingers. Recognition signals. Dawn. Does this ship have any protocols for identifying friendly vessels to a cloaked Calraxian ship? Affirmative, the AI responded. Standard recognition protocol involves a specific sequence of gravitational pulses generated by the main drive system. Implement the protocol, Ellie ordered. Let's announce ourselves properly. Gravitational pulse sequence initiated, Dawn confirmed. The bridge hummed subtly as the ship's drive systems generated a pattern of gravitational distortions, invisible to conventional sensors, but detectable by specialized Calraxian technology. For several moments, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a shape began to materialize on the view screen, a sleek vessel with lines even more elegant than the Dawn Reclamation. Its hull, a deeper shade of the distinctive Calraxian blue-tinted alloy. Twilight Vindication detected, Dawn announced. The vessel is powering up primary systems and has established a communication channel. On screen, Ellie ordered, straightening her new captain's jacket unconsciously. The view screen shifted to show an empty bridge, similar in design to the Dawn Reclamations, but with subtle differences that emphasized sensor stations rather than weapons controls. Greetings, approaching vessel, came a voice without a visible speaker. State your identity and purpose. Ellie glanced at Zikatal, who nodded encouragingly. This is Captain Eleanor Carmichael of the Calraxian cruiser, Dawn Reclamation. We are on a mission to recover the scattered Calraxian fleet, including the Twilight Vindication. There was a pause before the voice responded. Captain Carmichael, human designation. Explain your command of a Calraxian vessel. I passed the Dawn Reclamation's verification protocols, Ellie replied. The ship has accepted me as its new captain under the guidance of technical advisor Zikatal. Another pause. Longer this time. Zikatal's presence is verified through biometric analysis. Your claim requires direct verification. Prepare for shuttle transmission. The communication ended abruptly. Shuttle transmission? Ellie repeated, confused. What does that mean? Before Zikatal could respond, Dawn interrupted. Incoming transport. The Twilight Vindication has launched a small craft on intercept course. The view screen shifted to show a sleek shuttle emerging from the larger ship's hangar bay, accelerating rapidly toward the Dawn Reclamation. They're sending someone to verify my claim in person, Ellie realized. Dawn, prepare to receive the shuttle. Zikatal, would you accompany me to the docking bay? Of course, Captain, the alien agreed. As they made their way through the ship's corridors, Ellie found herself growing nervous. The Dawn Reclamation's verification had been a solitary trial, a test of her resourcefulness and technical skills. Whatever the Twilight Vindication had planned would likely be very different. The docking bay was a vast chamber near the rear of the ship, currently housing only Ellie's small salvage shuttle, which looked absurdly primitive against the advanced Calraxian technology surrounding it. My first order as captain should have been to jettison that heap of junk, Ellie muttered. Perhaps not, Zikatal observed thoughtfully. It represents where you began this journey. Even legends should remember their origins. Before Ellie could respond, the massive bay doors began to slide open, revealing the star-filled void beyond. A shimmering energy field maintained atmosphere within the bay, while allowing solid objects to pass through. The Calraxian shuttle approached with precision, its design reminiscent of a predatory aquatic creature. It glided through the energy field and settled gently onto the deck, its landing struts extending at the last possible moment. A hatch on the shuttle's side slid open, and a figure emerged that caused both Ellie and Zikatal to gasp in surprise. It was a Calraxian, but unlike any Ellie had ever seen in historical records or educational materials. Where Zikatal's 4 arms were his most distinctive non-human feature. This being had 2 arms, but 4 legs, arranged in a centaur-like configuration. Its skin was a deeper blue than Zikatal's, with luminescent patterns that shifted subtly as it moved. "Sarikath," Zikatal whispered, his voice filled with awe. "You survived!" The 4-legged Calraxian approached them with a fluid grace that Ellie found mesmerizing. When it spoke, its voice matched the one they had heard over the communication channel. "Barely, old friend," Sarikath replied. "The Twilight and I have been in stasis for most of these long years, awakening only briefly to assess potential threats and opportunities." The alien's gaze shifted to Ellie. "So this is the human who has claimed the Dawn Reclamation. Interesting." Ellie straightened her posture, meeting the alien's gaze directly. "Captain Eleanor Carmichael. I passed the Dawn's verification protocols and have been entrusted with its command." "So I am told," Sarikath responded, circling Ellie with a predatory grace that made her skin prickle. "But the Twilight Vindication has its own standards. The Dawn was always more accommodating." "Sarikath," Zikatal began, "Captain Carmichael has proven—" "To you, perhaps," the 4-legged alien interrupted. "But not to me, and not to the Twilight." Sarikath's attention returned to Ellie. "The question remains, can a human truly understand what is at stake? Can you comprehend the legacy you claim to uphold?" "I'm beginning to," Ellie replied honestly, "and I'm willing to learn what I don't yet understand." Sarikath made a sound that might have been laughter. "Willingness is not capability, human. The Twilight Vindication requires more than good intentions." "What does it require, then?" Ellie challenged. "Another life or death puzzle? Another countdown timer while I gasp for air?" The alien's luminescent patterns flashed briefly. "The Dawn's methods are direct, like its purpose. The Twilight's verification is more nuanced." Without warning, Sarikath produced a small device from a compartment in the shuttle. Before Ellie or Zikatal could react, it projected a blinding flash of light that engulfed Ellie completely. When her vision cleared, she found herself no longer in the docking bay, but in what appeared to be a featureless white room without doors or windows. The walls, floor, and ceiling formed a perfect cube, offering no clue as to location or purpose. "What the hell?" Ellie spun around, searching for any feature or exit. "The Twilight Vindication's verification space," came Sarikath's voice from everywhere and nowhere. "A pocket dimension generated by quantum displacement technology. Here, perception is reality, and your challenge." "And what exactly is my challenge?" Ellie demanded, fighting down panic at the sudden displacement. "To see what is not visible," Sarikath replied cryptically. "To know what cannot be known through conventional means." The white walls around Ellie suddenly came alive with projected images, star charts, ship schematics, alien text scrolling at dizzying speeds, all overlapping and shifting too quickly to process. "Information is the currency of reconnaissance," Sarikath continued. "The Twilight Vindication's purpose is to gather, analyze, and utilize critical intelligence. Your task is to extract meaning from chaos." Ellie turned slowly, trying to make sense of the overwhelming flood of data surrounding her. "There's too much. No one could process all this." "Precisely," came the reply. "The art of reconnaissance is not seeing everything, but identifying what matters. Find the pattern that matters. Captain Carmichael." Ellie forced herself to breathe slowly, to focus despite the visual assault. There had to be a methodology to this madness, a purpose to the particular data being shown. She began to notice that certain images repeated more frequently than others. A particular star system, a specific ship configuration, a sequence of symbols that appeared at regular intervals. "The recurring elements," she murmured. "They're highlighting something." Concentrating on just the repeating patterns, Ellie began to see connections. The star system contained an unusual planetary configuration. The ship schematics showed a Calraxian vessel, unlike either the Dawn Reclamation or the Twilight Vindication. And the recurring symbols? "It's coordinates," she realized. "Coordinates to the third ship in the fleet." As soon as she spoke the words, the chaotic display froze, the recurring elements remaining while everything else faded away. "Partial pattern recognition achieved," Sarakath acknowledged. "But coordinates to what purpose? Context is crucial in intelligence work." Ellie studied the remaining elements more carefully. The planetary system contained a gas giant with numerous moons, one of which was highlighted. The ship schematic showed what appeared to be a heavily armed vessel, with distinctive weapons arrays. "It's a warning," she said slowly, the pieces falling into place. "The third ship, it's in danger. There's something about that moon, some kind of threat." The white room rippled around her, the images consolidating into a single, coherent display. A tactical assessment showing enemy vessels converging on the location of the third Calraxian ship. "Hegemony scout ships," Sarakath confirmed, his voice now coming from behind Ellie. She turned to find the four-legged alien standing there, its luminescent patterns pulsing with what might have been approval. "They've located the morning retribution," Sarakath continued. "The third ship in our scattered fleet. It remains in deep hibernation, vulnerable to detection and capture." "How long do we have?" Ellie asked, shifting immediately to tactical thinking. "The scout ships will reach detection range in approximately 72 hours, Sarakath replied. "If they confirm the morning retribution's presence, they will summon a hegemony battle group. Then we need to get there first," Ellie decided. "Wake the morning retribution before the scouts can confirm its location." Sarakath's patterns flashed in what Ellie interpreted as surprise. "You would prioritize the fleet's recovery over your own safety. The hegemony is not to be underestimated. Captain Carmichael." "Neither am I," Ellie replied with more confidence than she felt. "Besides, I didn't come this far to abandon the mission at the first sign of trouble." The white room dissolved around them, resolving back into the docking bay of the Dawn Reclamation. Zikatal stood exactly where he had been before, suggesting no time had passed in the real world, despite Ellie's extended experience in the quantum displacement space. "What happened?" Zikatal asked, looking between Ellie and Sarakath. "The verification is complete," Sarakath interrupted, its luminescent patterns now glowing a steady blue. "Captain Carmichael has identified the critical intelligence and determined the appropriate course of action. The Twilight Vindication acknowledges her authority." Ellie felt a wave of relief wash over her, quickly replaced by determination. "We need to move quickly. The morning retribution is in danger of being discovered by hegemony scouts. We have less than 72 hours to reach it first." Zikatal's four arms moved in a complex gesture of alarm. "The hegemony? After all these years?" "They never stop searching," Sarakath confirmed grimly. "The technology of our fleet represents too valuable a prize." "Then we don't have time to waste," Ellie declared. "Sarakath, will you and the Twilight Vindication join us?" The four-legged alien performed a gesture that resembled a formal bow. "The Twilight will follow the Dawn's lead. Captain Carmichael, our sensors and stealth capabilities are at your disposal." "Good," Ellie nodded. "Return to your ship and prepare for immediate departure. We'll coordinate our approach once we're underway." As Sarakath returned to the shuttle, Ellie turned to Zikatal. "Back to the bridge. We need to plot the fastest possible course to the morning retribution." "The hegemony is not an enemy to be taken lightly," Zikatal warned as they hurried through the corridors. Their technological capabilities rival our own, and their tactics are ruthless. All the more reason to get to the morning retribution first, Ellie replied grimly. 3 ships against a scout group. I like those odds better than trying to face a full battle group later. Back on the bridge, Ellie took her position at the command console. Dawn, have you received the coordinates for the morning retribution? Affirmative, Captain. The AI responded. The Twilight Vindication has transmitted complete navigational data. The morning retribution is located in the Veridon system, in orbit around the third moon of the gas giant Veridon Prime. Plot the fastest possible course, Ellie ordered. Push the engines to maximum sustainable output. Course plotted, Dawn confirmed. At maximum sustainable speed. Estimated arrival in 64 hours, 17 minutes. That's cutting it close, Ellie muttered. Zikatal, what can you tell me about the morning retribution? What kind of ship are we looking to recover? The morning retribution is a heavy combat cruiser, Zikatal explained, bringing up a schematic on a secondary display. Where the Dawn Reclamation is balanced between offense and defense, and the Twilight Vindication specializes in stealth and reconnaissance. The morning is pure offensive capability. Ellie studied the schematic with appreciation. Those weapon arrays look formidable. They are, Zikatal confirmed. The morning retribution was the fleet's primary strike vessel, designed to engage multiple enemies simultaneously. Its verification protocols will likely reflect this combat orientation. Wonderful, Ellie sighed. I can hardly wait to see what deadly trial it has in store for me. The morning's last commander was Drakath, a legendary tactician. Zikatal continued. If he survived as Sarakath did, he will be challenging to convince. I'll worry about convincing Drakath when we get there, Ellie decided. For now, our priority is reaching the ship before the hegemony scouts. Dawn, notify me of any change in our estimated arrival time, or if you detect any unusual activity along our route. Understood, Captain, the AI acknowledged. As the Dawn Reclamation accelerated to its maximum sustainable speed, Ellie felt the subtle vibration of the ship's engines through the deck plates. Behind them, the Twilight Vindication matched their course and speed, its stealth systems partially active to minimize the chance of detection. Ellie found herself in the strange position of racing to save a ship she'd never seen, from an enemy she barely understood, with allies she'd just met. Yet somehow, it felt right, as if her entire life of scraping by in the salvage business had been preparing her for this moment. From scrap to legend, she whispered to herself once more, watching the stars streak by on the view screen as they hurried toward their rendezvous with destiny. The journey to the Veridon system pushed both ships and crews to their limits. The Dawn Reclamation maintained maximum sustainable speed for over 60 hours straight, its engines humming with a harmonic resonance that Zikatal assured Ellie was within safe parameters, despite the occasional concerning vibration that ran through the hull. Ellie spent the time learning everything she could about Calraxian tactical systems, hegemony vessel capabilities, and the morning retribution specifications. She slept in brief intervals, usually at the command console itself, unwilling to be away from the bridge for long. You should rest properly, Zikatal suggested, during one such moment, when he found Ellie dozing in the captain's chair. The Dawn can alert you if anything requires your attention. I'll rest when we've secured the morning retribution, Ellie replied, rubbing her eyes. How much longer? 3 hours, 22 minutes to arrival in the Veridon system, Dawn reported. Ellie straightened in her chair. Status of the Twilight Vindication? Maintaining position off our port stern, the AI responded. Captain Sarakath reports all systems nominal. Their long-range sensors are actively scanning for hegemony activity. Any sign of the scout ships? Negative. If they maintain their projected course and speed, they will not reach scanning range of the morning retribution for approximately 7 hours. Ellie nodded, allowing herself a small measure of relief. Then we still have time. Dawn, Show me the Veridon system again. A holographic display materialized, showing a yellow star with 7 planets. The 4th planet was a massive gas giant, Veridon Prime, with 23 moons of various sizes orbiting it. 1 moon, the 3rd from the planet, was highlighted. "That's where we'll find the morning retribution," Ellie murmured. "What can you tell me about that moon?" Veridon Prime the 3 is a desolate rocky body with a thin methane atmosphere, Dawn reported. Surface temperature averages negative 142 degrees Celsius. No indigenous life forms detected in historical scans. "A perfect hiding place," Zikatal observed. "Inhospitable enough to discourage casual exploration, but with sufficient gravity to maintain a stable orbit for long-term concealment." "And yet the hegemony somehow found it," Ellie noted grimly. "Which raises the question, how? And what else might they know that we don't?" Before Zikatal could respond, a priority alert chimed from the communication console. "Incoming transmission from the Twilight Vindication," Dawn announced. "Priority Alpha." "On screen," Ellie ordered, instantly alert. Sarakath's image appeared, the Calraxian's luminescent patterns pulsing with agitation. "Captain Carmichael, our long-range sensors have detected anomalous energy signatures at the edge of the Veridon system." "Hegemony?" Ellie asked, a cold knot forming in her stomach. "Inconclusive, but the pattern matches known hegemony stealth drives," Sarakath replied. "If it is them, they've arrived ahead of our projections." "How is that possible?" Ellie demanded. "Your intelligence indicated we had more time." "The scouts must have increased speed beyond sustainable limits," Sarakath suggested. "A desperation tactic that risks catastrophic drive failure, but can achieve brief periods of enhanced velocity." "How many vessels?" 3, possibly 4. The energy signatures are difficult to isolate at this range. Ellie's mind raced through the tactical implications. If they're pushing their drives that hard, they must consider this mission critical, which means they know exactly what they're looking for. "Agreed," Sarakath confirmed. "We must assume they have specific intelligence about the morning retribution's location." "Dawn, recalculate our approach," Ellie ordered. "We need to reach that moon before the hegemony scouts, even if it means pushing our own engines beyond sustainable limits." "Captain," Zikatal cautioned, "the Dawn reclamation has been operating at maximum sustainable output for over 60 hours. Exceeding those parameters risks." "I know the risks," Ellie interrupted. "But if the hegemony reaches the morning retribution first, all of this was for nothing." She turned back to the view screen. "Sarakath, can the Twilight match our acceleration if we push beyond sustainable limits?" The 4-legged alien's patterns flashed in what Ellie had come to recognize as determination. "The Twilight Vindication was designed for rapid deployment. We can match and exceed your acceleration if necessary." "Good," Ellie nodded. "Dawn, calculate maximum possible speed, accepting temporary system strain but avoiding permanent damage." "Calculating," the AI responded. After a brief pause, "Recommend no more than 127% of current output. Beyond that threshold, probability of critical system failure exceeds 40%. "Implement immediately," Ellie ordered. "New estimated arrival time?" "At 127% output, we will reach Veridon Prime 3 in 2 hours, 7 minutes. "And the hegemony scouts?" "Based on current trajectory and speed, they will arrive approximately 18 minutes after us." Ellie exchanged glances with Zikatal. 18 minutes to find the morning retribution, wake it up, and prepare for potential combat. Not exactly comfortable odds. "We have faced worse," Zikatal reminded her. "The Dawn reclamation has surprised its enemies before." As the ship accelerated beyond its designed limits, a subtle tremor ran through the deck plates. Warning indicators illuminated on several engineering displays, though Dawn quickly adjusted power distribution to stabilize the most critical systems. "Sarakath," Ellie addressed the view screen. "We'll need the Twilight stealth capabilities when we arrive. Can you mask both our ships during the approach? Briefly, the alien confirmed, but attempting to conceal two vessels simultaneously will strain our systems. The effect will be imperfect and temporary. Even a few minutes of concealment could make the difference, Ellie decided. We'll coordinate details as we approach the moon. For now, maintain formation and be prepared for rapid tactical adjustments. As the transmission ended, Ellie turned to Zikatal. I need to understand exactly what we're facing. Tell me everything you know about hegemony scout ships, capabilities, weaknesses, standard tactics. For the next hour, as the Dawn Reclamation pushed its engines to their limits, Zikatal briefed Ellie on everything he knew about their potential adversaries. The hegemony scout vessels were smaller than Calraxian cruisers, but dangerously fast and equipped with advanced sensor arrays capable of penetrating most stealth technologies. Their primary advantage is coordination, Zikatal explained, displaying tactical simulations on a secondary screen. Scout vessels operate in synchronized groups, sharing sensor data and attacking in choreographed patterns that maximize their effectiveness. So we need to disrupt their coordination, Ellie mused. Dawn, does this ship have any electronic warfare capabilities? Something that could interfere with inter-ship communications? The Dawn Reclamation is equipped with broad-spectrum signal disruptors, the AI confirmed. However, hegemony vessels use quantum-entangled communication systems that are immune to conventional jamming. What about unconventional jamming? Ellie pressed, an idea forming. Could we use the gravitational pulse system, the one we use to signal the Twilight Vindication, to create interference in their quantum entanglement? Zikatal's forearms paused in their manipulation of the tactical display. An innovative approach, he acknowledged. Gravitational distortions could potentially destabilize quantum cohesion, though the effect would be temporary and unpredictable. Sometimes temporary and unpredictable is all you need, Ellie replied with a grim smile. Dawn, prepare the gravitational pulse system for offensive deployment. Work with the Twilight Vindication to develop a synchronization pattern that will maximize disruptive potential. Implementing, Captain, the AI responded, coordinating with Twilight Vindication systems now. As they approached the Veridon system, the gas giant Veridon Prime dominated the view screen, a swirling mass of amber and crimson atmospheric bands, its massive gravitational field already affecting their trajectory. Beginning deceleration sequence, Dawn announced. Approaching optimal orbital insertion vector for Veridon Prime 3. Status of hegemony vessels, Ellie demanded, tension evident in her voice. 4 distinct energy signatures confirmed. The AI reported, current trajectory suggests they are aware of our presence and are adjusting course to intercept. So much for the element of surprise, Ellie muttered. Sarakath, are you ready with the stealth field? The four-legged alien's image appeared on a secondary screen. Ready, Captain Carmichael. Stealth systems at maximum capacity. We can provide approximately 12 minutes of partial concealment once we enter the moon's orbital plane. It'll have to be enough, Ellie decided. Activate on my mark as we make our final approach. Dawn, prepare all defensive systems and maintain scan for the morning retribution's precise location. As they swept into the shadow of Veridon Prime, the massive gas giant temporarily blocking their view of the distant yellow sun. Ellie felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. She had come so far from the desperate salvager who had entered the airlock of a supposedly abandoned ship. Now, she was racing against an ancient enemy to recover a legendary warship, with the fate of an alien fleet hanging in the balance. From scrap to legend, she whispered to herself one more time, a reminder of how far she had come, and how much further she might yet go. Approaching final orbital insertion, Dawn announced. Veridon Prime 3 coming into scanner range. The desolate moon appeared on the view screen, its surface a maze of impact craters and jagged mountain ranges, all covered in a thin haze of frozen methane. Mark, Ellie commanded. Activate stealth field now! A subtle ripple passed through the ship as the Twilight Vindication's advanced stealth technology extended to encompass both vessels. On the tactical display, their sensor signatures dimmed significantly, though not completely. Beginning surface scan for the morning retribution, Dawn reported. Anomalous energy reading detected in the northern hemisphere, centered on a large impact crater. That's it, Zikatal confirmed, studying the readings. The signature matches morning retribution's hibernation pattern. Take us in, Ellie ordered. Optimal approach vector for rapid deployment. How much time do we have before the hegemony scouts can detect us? Stealth field effectiveness diminishing, Dawn responded. Estimated 11 minutes remaining before hegemony sensors can achieve positive lock. And how long until we reach the morning retribution's position? At current velocity, 7 minutes, 14 seconds. Ellie nodded tensely. Then, we have exactly 7 minutes to locate the ship, 4 minutes to wake it up, and 0 minutes to prepare for combat. Let's make every second count. As the Dawn Reclamation and Twilight Vindication descended toward the cratered surface of Veridon Prime 3, Ellie couldn't help but wonder what verification challenge the morning retribution would present, and whether she would have time to overcome it before the hegemony scouts arrived to claim their prize. The surface of Veridon Prime III grew increasingly detailed on the view screen as the two Calraxian vessels descended toward the massive impact crater where the morning retribution lay hidden. What had appeared as a simple depression from orbit revealed itself to be a complex geological formation with a central peak and terraced walls, perfect for concealing a ship from casual observation. Stealth field holding at 76% effectiveness, Dawn reported. 9 minutes, 30 seconds remaining before probable detection. Life support systems? Ellie asked, already anticipating her next move. Environmental suit not required for brief exposure, the AI confirmed. The moon's atmosphere, while thin and primarily methane, is within survivable parameters for up to 20 minutes with proper preparation. Prepare a breathing apparatus for me, Ellie ordered. I'll need to board the morning retribution directly. Captain, Zikatal objected. The verification protocols may be even more dangerous than those you've already faced. Under these pressured circumstances. There's no time for caution, Ellie interrupted. The Dawn Reclamation can't establish a proper docking seal in these conditions, and we can't risk exposing both ships while we try to wake the morning retribution remotely. I have to go in person, and I have to go now. Before Zikatal could protest further, Sarakath's voice came through the communication system. Captain Carmichael's assessment is correct. Direct intervention is our only viable option. The Twilight Vindication will maintain the stealth field and monitor the approaching hegemony vessels. Thank you, Sarakath, Ellie acknowledged. Dawn, take us as close as possible to the morning retribution's location. Prepare for hover deployment. As they closed in on the crater, the sensors finally penetrated the layers of concealment surrounding their target. The morning retribution came into view, a massive vessel nearly twice the size of the Dawn Reclamation. Its hull, a deeper shade of the distinctive Calraxian blue-tinted alloy. Unlike the other two ships, its design emphasized offensive capability, with multiple weapon emplacements visible even in its dormant state. Impressive, Ellie murmured. No wonder the hegemony wants to get their hands on it. The morning retribution was the pride of our fleet, Zikatal confirmed. Its weapon systems were unmatched. In full operation, it could engage multiple capital ships simultaneously. Let's hope we can wake it up before we need to test that capability. Ellie replied grimly. Dawn, hold position 50 meters above the morning retribution's main airlock. Zikatal, you have the bridge until I return. The alien's forearms moved in a gesture of acknowledgement. Be careful, Captain. The morning's verification may be martial in nature. I wouldn't expect anything less, Ellie replied with a tight smile. In the equipment bay, Ellie quickly donned a specialized breathing apparatus designed for hostile atmospheres. Unlike a full environmental suit, it consisted primarily of a face mask with attached oxygen supply and thermal regulation, allowing for greater mobility at the cost of limited exposure time. The apparatus will provide breathable air for 22 minutes, Dawn informed her through the ship's communication system. Beyond that threshold, exposure to the moon's atmosphere will cause rapidly accelerating cellular damage. 22 minutes to find an airlock, solve whatever deadly puzzle awaits, and convince another Calraxian to join our cause. Ellie summarized, "No pressure." "Additional caution advised," the AI continued, missing her sarcasm. "Surface temperature is negative 147 degrees Celsius. The thermal regulator will protect vital areas, but extremities remain vulnerable to rapid frostbite. Minimize exposure time." "Understood," Ellie replied more seriously. "Deploy when ready." The equipment bay's floor opened beneath her, revealing a circular platform that began to descend toward the moon's surface. As it lowered beyond the ship's artificial gravity field, Ellie felt the sudden lightness of the moon's minimal gravity, a small advantage that would make movement easier, though the cold would quickly sap her strength regardless. The platform stopped its descent 50 meters above the Morning Retribution's hull. From here, Ellie could see that the massive ship was partially buried in the crater's central peak, with only its upper sections visible. "Jump point optimal," Dawn announced. "Gravitational calculators active. Recommend minimum effort jump with forward momentum." Ellie took a deep breath of filtered air, steadied herself on the platform's edge, and pushed off with just enough force to clear the platform. In the moon's light gravity, she drifted down toward the ship's hull in what felt like slow motion. The moment she cleared the Dawn Reclamation's protective energy field, the cold hit her like a physical blow. Even through the thermal regulation of the breathing apparatus, it felt as if tiny needles were being driven into any exposed skin. Her jumpsuit provided some protection, but she knew immediately that Dawn's warning about frostbite was no exaggeration. Her landing on the Morning Retribution's hull was gentle in the reduced gravity, but the metal beneath her feet was so cold it seemed to burn through her boot soles. Moving quickly, both to generate heat and to conserve her limited time, Ellie made her way toward what appeared to be the ship's main airlock. "Dawn, maintain communication link," she said through the breathing mask. "Any change in the Hegemony Scout's position?" "Negative, Captain." The AI's voice came through clearly, despite the distance. "Current estimated arrival, 7 minutes, 42 seconds. Stealth field holding at 68% effectiveness." As Ellie approached the airlock, she was surprised to find it partially open, a sliver of darkness visible between the massive doors. It seemed the Morning Retribution wasn't entirely dormant after all. "That's convenient," she muttered suspiciously. After her experiences with the Dawn Reclamation and Twilight Vindication, she was wary of anything that seemed too easy. With considerable effort, she managed to widen the gap enough to slip through, entering what appeared to be an antechamber, similar to the one she'd encountered on the Dawn Reclamation. As soon as she was inside, the outer door slid shut behind her with surprising speed, sealing with a hiss of pressure equalization. "Okay, here we go," Ellie whispered to herself as the chamber's lighting activated, revealing a space significantly larger and more militaristic in design than the Dawn Reclamation's airlock. Weapon racks lined the walls, though they were currently empty. Status indicators glowed a deep crimson along control panels that were clearly designed for rapid deployment of armed personnel. "Intruder detected," announced a harsh, mechanical voice that made the Dawn Reclamation's AI sound positively melodious by comparison. "Identify or face elimination." "Captain Eleanor Carmichael of the Calraxian cruiser, Dawn Reclamation," Ellie replied firmly, refusing to show fear despite the explicit threat. "I've come to awaken the Morning Retribution before Hegemony forces arrive to claim it." There was a pause. Then, Calraxian genetic markers not detected. Human biological signature confirmed. Explain command of Calraxian vessel. I passed the verification protocols of both the Dawn Reclamation and the Twilight Vindication, Ellie explained. Technical advisor Zikatal and navigator Sarakath can confirm my authority. But there's no time for extended verification. Hegemony scout ships will arrive in less than 8 minutes. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the inner door slid open, revealing not the bridge Ellie had expected, but a large chamber that appeared to be a training arena. Weapons of various designs were mounted on the walls, and the floor was marked with complex patterns that suggested combat formations. Enter combat verification chamber, the voice ordered. Prove worthiness through trial by combat. Of course it had to be combat, Ellie muttered, stepping cautiously into the arena. Because puzzles and intelligence tests weren't lethal enough. As she entered, the door sealed behind her, and a holographic figure materialized in the center of the chamber. A Calraxian warrior in full battle armor, wielding what appeared to be a ceremonial staff. Unlike Zikatal or Sarakath, this figure had 6 arms, each holding a different section of the staff that could apparently be separated into individual weapons. I am Draketh, last commander of the Morning Retribution. The holographic figure announced, To claim my ship, you must demonstrate combat proficiency. Choose your weapon. Ellie glanced at the array of weapons mounted on the walls, all clearly designed for Calraxian physiology, with their multiple grips and complex balance points. Dawn, she subvocalized into her communication link. How much time do I have? Hegemony vessels approaching rapidly, the AI responded in her ear. Estimated arrival now 6 minutes, 12 seconds. Stealth field effectiveness declining. I don't have time for a full combat trial, Ellie called out to the holographic Drakath. Hegemony forces are minutes away. We need to activate the Morning Retribution immediately. Combat proficiency is non-negotiable, the hologram replied inflexibly. The Morning Retribution is a weapon of war. Its commander must demonstrate martial skill. Ellie's mind raced, searching for a solution that wouldn't involve a hopeless battle against a 6-armed Calraxian warrior. Then an idea struck her, one born of years navigating the cutthroat world of salvage rights. I invoke the right of strategic priority, she declared confidently. Under Calraxian Military Code, Section 12, Paragraph 4, when imminent threat to strategic assets exists, verification protocols may be abbreviated at the discretion of the ranking officer present. The holographic Drakath paused, its stance shifting subtly. Cite your authority for invoking this right. As verified captain of the Dawn Reclamation and Twilight Vindication, I am currently the ranking Calraxian fleet officer in this system, Ellie replied, silently thanking Zikatal for the hours of fleet protocol he'd drilled into her during their journey. The imminent arrival of hegemony forces constitutes a clear threat to a strategic asset, namely, this ship. For a tense moment, the hologram remained motionless. Then, to Ellie's immense relief, it nodded. Right of strategic priority acknowledged, Drakath conceded. Abbreviated verification protocol initiated. State combat philosophy. Ellie blinked, caught off guard by the sudden shift. Combat philosophy. Your approach to warfare, the hologram clarified. The Morning Retribution must understand its commander's tactical principles. Ellie thought quickly, drawing on everything she'd learned about Calraxian military doctrine from Zikatal. I believe in decisive force applied with precision. Combat is not about overwhelming power, but about identifying critical vulnerabilities and exploiting them with minimal expenditure of resources. Victory comes from superior positioning and timing, not merely superior firepower. The holographic Drakath considered her words, then nodded again. Philosophy accepted. Final verification. Demonstrate practical application. Before Ellie could ask what that meant, a series of holographic targets appeared throughout the chamber, each representing different vessel types, some hegemony, some civilian, some clearly allied forces. Prioritize targets, Dracath instructed. Limited weapons energy available. Deployment must be optimal. Understanding immediately. Ellie studied the tactical scenario presented. The targets were arranged in a complex three-dimensional pattern that simulated an actual space battle, with vectors and velocities indicated by subtle visual cues. Drawing on her years of navigation through cluttered salvage fields and asteroid belts, Ellie quickly identified the optimal sequence. First, the command and control vessel, she declared, indicating a heavily shielded hegemony ship at the formation center. Then, the forward sensor platforms to blind their coordinated targeting. Next, the heavy weapons platforms while they're still disoriented. Ignore the support vessels. They'll withdraw once their protection is gone. And absolutely avoid the civilian transports. They're being used as shields. But destroying them gains us nothing and costs valuable resources.